Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today I get to interview Kevin. So Kevin, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Kevin, what was the official type that you got? Can you give us the full animal and sexual modalities?
Yeah, I got Ni-Fe, blast, play, consume, sleep, and audio, MF.
Masculine and feminine. So you are an INFJ, but you are the most extroverted of INFJs. So how did you feel and what did you think when you got your typing results back?
I was pretty shocked. I had self-typed as an ISTP jumper, or maybe possibly an INFJ jumper, same functions. I had actually figured out my functions, but I was completely wrong. I thought I was sleep first. I've had social anxiety my whole life since I was a little kid. And so I think at a very young age, I was very shy, and a lot of stuff, caused me to get social anxiety. So I think like my extroverted functions in animals, I think I just was doing them in my head. So like I'm in my head like 90% of the day. And so I thought all of that stuff I was doing up there was sleep, but apparently I'm blasting and playing up in my head. So it was kind of a shock for me. So I knew that I had struggles with social anxiety for a long time. So I've been working on stuff, periodically. But yeah, I never thought I was extrovert. I thought I'm like the most introverted, you could be. So I was kind of shocked by that.
Well, where do you think the social anxiety came from? Like, what was the root cause of it?
Well, it's probably because I have the feminine Ni and the feminine Fe at the top, and I was very sensitive to people's emotions, and I was raised in a pretty hardcore fundamentalist Christian like cult, and my dad was a narcissist, and so I'm getting a lot of hate. I'm feeling it, at least, that who I am when I'm just being myself is not acceptable. It's like you're being a way that you're not supposed to be, and you need to stop doing that. So I think I was just picking that up, and it was like, oh, when I do this, they don't like it, so I need to stop doing that. And I would just keep it in my head and not do it in the real world. Like I would think I want to say things, and then I would just say them in my head, and then I wouldn't say them out loud because I would get hate. So over time, it was just all up here. And I knew, the last 20 or so years, I just turned 50 during this quarantine. I knew, a long time that I had the social anxiety, and it was wrecking my life, and I needed to start doing stuff about it to overcome it. So finding my type was actually, it's like I almost have permission to like do my saviors now, because I thought I was NT. My job is computer programmer. I got a degree in math and minor in computer science. I'm an atheist. I'm pro science. I'm not any of that NF stuff that you hear about all the INFJs. It's like I joined an INFJ group on Facebook, and it's so much NF stuff in there that I completely reject. So it was like, I don't belong in this group. I got out. So ask me whatever you need to ask me. I'm talking too much here, but.
Oh, no, it's your interview, man. I want you to talk. But anyways, first of all, congratulations for turning 50. That's a huge life milestone for sure. If there's any perfect time in life to get a perspective on how you should live your life, I think now is the time. Yeah. And I'm sorry to hear about, the social anxiety that you experienced as a kid, being made felt like not good enough just for being yourself, which I think is... I don't like that. Hearing that, it's awful. I think I think there should be more acceptance when it comes to like. I think the worst part too is like by people rejecting your true self, you don't get a chance to fully reach your potential too, because you're essentially held back. Because Definitely. Everyone's true selves has a talent attached to it, and that talent is kind of squandered as a result of people say it's not good enough, it's not what we want you to be someone else, and that's it's horrible. But What do you mean that you now have permission to say to use your saviors? Like how would you use your, so your savior is blast and play. So how would you use blast and play then?
Yeah. So I've been doing it in my head all this time. And now it's just like, I feel like I need to just start doing it, you know, in real life and not see, I can see that I'm putting up roadblocks in my mind when I want to extrovert. It's like my NI is like, and my TI is like, I can predict how this is going to go wrong. So don't do this thing that you know, don't say the thing you want to say because it's going to, you know, go in a bad direction. My brain's constantly doing that. So it's preventing me from, you know, speaking. So now now that I know what's going on with all of the ops stuff I'm learning, it's like, oh, I see what's happening there. I'm going to go around this roadblock that my brain's trying to put in the way. So, you know, it's not easy. I'm trying to learn how to do it. So I started a YouTube channel to just talk about this stuff I'm doing, you know, trying to figure myself out and overcome, you know, the struggles and stuff. So
It seems to me that it's because you have double activated FE. So with FE, you have you're trying to seek the tribe values, and you're trying to adhere to tribe values. But there's like an inner conflict because the tribe values that doesn't necessarily match with your you know, your truths about yourself, right?
right, yeah.
And you have masculine TI also, which I'm gonna add on to the next part of the question here. So,
Yeah, sure.
What kind of struggle do you feel with like the masculine TI? You know your inner truths, but at the same time, it kind of conflicts with that tribe values, with that FE, and especially your FE is feminine, so you're submissive to the tribe's values.
Right.
Let's talk about that inner conflict between those two functions.
That's one of the things I'm trying to like be aware of. I'm not that aware of it. I see myself double deciding, I guess.
Right.
I've always thought of myself as self over tribe. So I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that I actually am, you know, tribe above. I thought I was self above tribe. So it's I'm trying to reorient my thinking. It's like I'm seeing now that how, you know, I'm seeing the tribe and, you know, that whole thing. So the masculine TI, I guess I see myself using it when well, in my consume, you know, they're both masculine, it's double masculine. So I see that I get very angry if I'm consuming something that I'm consuming for myself that I want to consume, and someone tries to interrupt that. It's like the Hulk, you know, I turn it, you know, stop, you know, because it takes me a while to get down to that consume. It's the third. So I can see that, you know, I can see it there. And then I guess in my NT, I'm feminine with the N, but the T is, you know, the logic and the reasons and stuff. I'm pretty firm on that. So, but with the FE, I don't know. I guess when I'm double deciding, maybe I'm slightly more inclined to the TI, but I don't know. Do you have anything you could ask that would maybe get me there?
I can relate to what you said. So you said that when you're consuming and someone interrupts you, you turn to a hawk, right? So I have double masculine sleep, and when I'm trying to sleep and people wake me up, I turn to a hawk as well, just because I have a hard time getting there. I have a hard time going to sleep, and when I'm finally there, I don't want you to disturb me because it's like a sacred moment, right? So for you, right. I think to consume it, that's your sacred moment.
Or if someone's trying to get me to consume something that I have no interest in, it's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I don't want to read this thing. I don't want to watch this thing right now. I have no interest. I have to push myself to like do that when it's like, if I need to do that, but I don't really want to. It's a struggle there too. So
I think it's because you have NI, so you have like a very narrowed down version of what you're interested in. So yeah, it's hard for you to kind of consume everything when you actually only care about like this one.
Right.
So that I think that's why a lot of IJs tend to have low consume, just because they have such a narrow interest. So if that area of consume is within your interest, then hey, you know what, I can consume that stuff all day. But if it's outside that interest, zero cares, unless you have to do it for work or you know, Like it's a mandatory thing, you know.
Yes. So like all this ops stuff, I'm consuming it like crazy. I'm consuming a lot of it. So
Now, I think it is because you do have double activated FE though. That's why you are like based on a story that you told me that you do very much seem like tribe above self. I can relate to your story as well because before I got officially type, I actually thought I was also tribe. I also thought I was self above tribe. I thought I was a standard ENFP, like consume, play, blast, sleep. But turns out I was play first. I was tribe above self, and then I started looking for evidence in the past where that was the case. Where yes, when I was doing something for myself, there was a versus the tribe, there would be an extra effort. Like it would almost feel like there's a spike, you know. It's not comfortable. There's a spike. Like I do choose myself, but there's a spike. You know, it's like there's a barrier in front of me, and I have to kind of push through the barrier. Well, if I were doing something for the tribe, there's no barrier. It's just smooth. You know, it's like going downhill versus going uphill. You know, like if I'm doing something for the tribe, it's going downhill. It's quick. It's just I can just roll something down. If I'm doing something for myself, I have to kind of push through resistance going uphill. So I don't know if you feel that.
I feel it when I'm with the tribe. I'll do what people want to do. I don't push against them. It's like everyone wants to do this. That's fine. I can move myself to whatever they want to do. I don't care. Unless it's something in my TI, I guess, don't want to do, then I'll stand up and say, no, I'm not doing that. But if it's like they want to pick a restaurant. If they ask what I want to do, I'll tell them. But if everyone wants to do something else, I'll do that. I don't care. It doesn't matter. When I get there, I'll be fine. If I don't want to go, maybe in the early part, I'm like, I'd rather go to these 5 other places. I'll go there. And then when I'm there, I know that I can have a nice time. So it's not a big deal.
Can you tell me your truths? Some of your TI truths?
I did a video on my channel actually about that because since it's third, the TI, and it's supposed to be a TI thing, I'm like, I struggle because for me, knowledge and truth is tentative. It's not something like I'm going to grab it and hold on to it and say, this is truth. And, I'm not going to be shaken from this. To me, it was easier to say, okay, what would be my 3 values? And then maybe try to get to truth that route. So it was easy because I was like, well, what would FI people do? Can they answer that truth thing? Or would they rather answer, what are my values? So I was like, it's easy for me to come up with values. It's like family, truth, loyalty. I mean, it's easy. So then I was like, okay, how could I convert those, run it through a program and get to a truth? So like, and so I did that process in my video and just the truth is tentative and that, don't clasp onto it, tightly. When you get to something that you think is truth, be ready to discard it when you find out that, it's not true. And family is just like, family comes first and they're important to me and stuff like that. And loyalty would be like, give people another chance if they, disrespect you, but, be ready to slam the door on them if, they're treating you like a doormat. So I got there, but I had to go a different route, basically.
Yeah, I noticed that you blasted and you used play first before you got to the sleep to get to the truth. So I thought that was quite interesting. But I'll give you an example. My sister, for example, so my youngest sister, she's a Ti+Se and INFJ. Not youngest sister, middle sister, sorry. And she has feminine TI though, so it's kind of been hard for her. But she has, as an outsider, I can see her truths actually. Like for me, I can see the truth is she's a generous person. That's the truth, right? So like that's like even as an outsider, I can see the truth, right? Like I can say, yes, you are a generous person. I can even look at my other friend who have TI, and I can even I can see their truths like from an outsider perspective. Like I have one friend, for example. The truth is, he's a great salesman. He can sell anything. He can sell like a snow to an Eskimo, for example. Like he's a great salesman. Like those are the truths I can see for other people. So I don't know if like how as a TI user, like I know that the ISTPs usually have no problem seeing their truths. They have it usually at the forefront, ESTPs as well. So that's why I wanted to ask you, because you have masculine Ti, so technically your truths would be solid. It is in the bottom though, because you have sleep last, right? So your identity is going to be the area that you're going to have the biggest problems with. So why don't we talk about that? So as a sleep last person, how hard is it for you to kind of figure out your identity as you grew throughout the years?
Yeah. Well, it took me a while to figure out what sleep actually was, because I was confused, like I was saying earlier. But I know that at work, writing programs and code, that I'm often using, Ni-Ti together to puzzle out, how to write, the code that I need to write. So I've been thinking about that, and like, how do I do that for me instead of, the work side of it? And I think what I do is it's just like when I have a goal in mind for my life, like I want to get from here to there, I will, use Ni-Ti to think about the best path to get there, the shortest, the least chaos. And then, I'll take steps to get there, and then maybe I have to do that process again if I see that, from here I can't get there, but maybe I have to back up and go a different route or whatever. So I guess I just use that for that is what I'm seeing now. I mean, I'm sure I'm doing it. Like if someone tells me, oh, have you thought about this thing about yourself? Because I'm not doing sleep all of the time, obviously, because it's fourth. But if someone tells me something and I realize I haven't processed that thing yet, I'll process it right then. It's like, okay, give me a second, and I'll think about it and get there. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to do it and when I do it, and then, okay, now I can start doing it more. But I'm still in that process of figuring that out, I guess.
What about your identity? Like, who is Kevin? Like, what is?
That's tough because I don't know. I don't know. I'm still trying to get there, because it's like I've studied Buddhism and stuff a lot, and philosophy and stuff. And I don't know that there's like a solid self that it's like I'm always changing. It's like I like a lot of those, ideas from philosophy and Buddhism and stuff. So it's like every moment it's a new me, it's like I try not to like cling to the past and like who I was and try to just all the time try to live up to my values and like who I want to be. And I'm always measuring myself against that version of me that I want to be. And it's like, okay, I'm falling short here, here, and here. Okay, and just always just trying to be more of that person. And then forgiving myself when I realize I haven't been doing that and just starting again. So
Who is that person that you want to be?
Well, like I was saying with my values, it's like truth and family and loyalty. I try to be honest, a kind person, caring, and just, loyal to friends and family. It's like, that's who I am. Like everybody in the neighborhood kind of knows me as a tech guy. So like when they have issues in their, they got a new TV or they got a new setup or they're having issues with their computer, I'll take their computer and build it, rebuild it, change out parts. I have like a bunch of RAM here. If they need that, I swap out what they have or add, I do stuff for people, and I do it for me. And from my point of view, it's like, I enjoy doing that stuff. It's nice that, they're being helped, but I like it. It's like, it's a puzzle to me. It's like, so I like helping people, but it's more about me from my vantage point, but it's nice that they like it and that they like me because I do it. But kindness, it's like, I just want to be a good person and try not to be too selfish. I have a daughter who's disabled. She's going to be 22 in a couple months. She doesn't walk. She doesn't speak. She can't do anything for herself. And so my wife and I, our life is taking care of her, giving her the best life she can have, and just doing everything we can for her. And it took me a long time to get my head, because like I was 28 when she was born, and we found out, there was something wrong with her when she was about 1. And I wasn't mentally prepared for having a disabled kid. And it was like, how the hell am I going to do this? My first thinking was, I want to get away from this. I don't want to have to do this. And then I imagined myself leaving, and it was like, I couldn't live with myself, you know. I had to find it within me to do it, you know, and it was tough. But it was like, I don't want to be the guy that looks back on his life and he gave up and left. I want to be the guy that said, you know, I did it, you know. I put in what I needed to do and I did it. And it was tough, but, you know, do what you got to do, right?
Thanks for sharing that story. You just did sleep processing right there. It was beautiful. It sounds to me that you want to be the kind of person that doesn't give up and perseveres on what needs to be done. That's kind of like, it seems like that's kind of like a truth for you, you know, like you want to be the kind of guy that has perseverance and does what needs to be done. If I were to sum it up.
Yeah.
You also have double activated SE.
Right.
So does that mean you don't have the normal problems that an IJ would have? Like you don't have problems with incoming chaos. You're more or less better with like the incoming chaos. You can see that coming and you can address it before it hits you and trips you up. Especially when you're working towards that goal of yours in the long term.
Yeah, I think so. Shannon and Dave said that in my audios that they sent me, that I seem to be very good at chaos. So, and last autumn, my daughter got pneumonia and was in ICU for 3 weeks. And so our lives are very like managed. It's like, you know, and when you throw chaos at it, we have to take the time to like, oh shit, how do we manage this? So, you know, my wife and I were staying every other night at the hospital with our daughter. And in the early days, you know, we didn't know if she was going to live. We thought she might die. So that was a lot of chaos, but it was like, okay, how do we manage this? And I mean, we did fine, but it was, you know, stressful. And we do it, you know. It's like our lives are, you know, we don't want the chaos, but when it comes, we're pretty agile and, you know, we can make, you know, we'll get through it. So I think we're pretty good at that.
I think you've also been living in chaos your whole life, it seems, you know, so it's kind of like you've gotten battle tested or developed that thick armor towards it, you know. It's like it's just because you've gotten beaten up so much from that chaos that it's kind of like it's been a part of you now. It's no longer the enemy. It's more like a constant companion.
Yeah.
It's like that unpleasant companion that you kind of
I can look at it and use it as a tool, you know. It's like
that's really nice. That's really good, actually. I think a lot of IJs who's watching this could learn from that, you know, because I think that's really good to just toughen yourself up and just get used to that chaos being a constant. It's never going to go away, and
I still do everything I can to try to avoid chaos.
Right.
But when it comes, you have to be a little agile and roll with it. It's not easy for sure, but.
Well, I can see from your demeanor how much of a struggle it is, but it's still I can also see that it's an area where you've accepted. You know, there's no resistance to it. It's just an acceptance. Like, I don't like it. I'm gonna prevent it from happening, but if it happens, I'll roll with the punches. You know.
Yeah.
They said that people who are double deciders or single observers have problems with fear, and their fear usually comes from that fourth function. So can you talk about your problems with fear, you know, over the years that you've had? And
with like sensory, I guess.
Sure, it could be sensory fear. I mean, you've already talked about it, but let's go a little bit deeper from the sensory fear that you have.
Yeah, I've noticed lately that like a lot of times when I'm planning to go out somewhere, I'll have in mind the whole, you know, the trip there, the trip back, what I'm going to do while I'm out. And I've noticed now that when my wife will say, oh, while you're out, can you do this, this, and this also? I normally panic in those situations because it's like I had already planned out the whole thing in my head, and now she's throwing chaos into the situation. And I didn't realize why I was feeling the way I was all the time. And now I see it. It's like my brain's freaking out of the chaos. And so I'm trying to help her and, you know, learn how to, you know, get around it myself. But to pose it to me in a different way, like I have a need that you can help me fill while you're out. Could you do me this favor? You know, if she can say it to me in a slightly modified way, then I'm seeing it as, oh, I'm doing something to help her, to help the family while I'm out. I'll be way more receptive to that. So it's like I'm hacking my fear, you know, by teaching her to present it to me in a different way, where I'll see it as, oh, this is something I can do. I can be a hero in this situation, right? Does that make sense, or am I crazy?
No, it makes
Right.
It makes 100% sense. I think a lot of NI people struggle with that. It's like,
Yeah.
I think it's like changing channels. So when someone gets you to switch gears in a drop of a hat, it's more it's tougher for NI users. It's not like, because you have to you've processed already in your head how you're gonna approach this, and suddenly someone just throws a wrench and everything's jumbled up. And then to make matters worse, they didn't even ask nicely about it too. So, and obviously that just makes things a lot harder. I know Dave, for example, when he has to go to a grocery store, he sits in the car for like 15 minutes first before he leaves the car to go grocery shopping. And then, you know, Shan would be like, are you kidding me? Are you going to sit here for 15 minutes? Why don't we just go inside and go buy whatever we need to buy? You know, it's like, so it's kind of funny with the lead NIs. They tend to have that like demeanor. But I thought that it was interesting that you were talking about like people saying, or your wife was saying, hey, can you also do this, this, and this? And then, you know, and you said it would be better if she worded it differently, to make it seem like you're helping the family or you can be the hero of the story. But you know, obviously that's not happening in reality, you know.
Right.
But so it seems like the problem here is, again, being sleep last. So I struggle with this. So I think I relate to what you're saying. And basically the problems that we're both having is we're not setting boundaries.
Right.
And you do need to have sleep to set boundaries. You know, if we don't use sleep, then we don't set boundaries. So essentially, you know, you think to yourself, okay, like, is this, for you, it's like, this is work for me. And for me, it's like, do I like it? Right. There's a similarity to it where for you, it's like, no, me getting the other groceries, this does not work for me. So then you would have kind of to put your feet down, right? And that's in that case, which is hard because you have feminine FE, right? And I have feminine T. So putting that foot down and saying, no, I don't want to do this, you know, for you, it's like, it doesn't work for me. For me, it's like, I don't like it. And
that seems so selfish. It's like, why? I can't come up with the logical reasons to stand by that. Like, I could say I don't want to do it, but then I have to have the logic to back that up. What? Because I'm a baby, I don't want to do it. Because I'm selfish, I don't want to do it. That's not good enough to me. So then I feel like, well, I should just do it. But so then I'm conflicted. It's like, I don't want to do it, but I can't make a logical argument for it, you know? Except I don't want to. That doesn't seem good enough to me. It seems too selfish. Like, too selfish.
I think from our perspective, it does feel selfish. And I can see your logical point for it. And it is a hard situation. But if you look at someone that has saved your sleep, they do it all the time. They don't care if it is selfish. They don't care if it's selfish. And if you're upset, you know, that's your problem, right? Like, you're responsible for your emotions, right? So that's kind of like how they think about it. It's like, the way you feel is not my responsibility. You know, that's your problem, right? I don't want to do it, and I'm not going to do it. You know, it's like, it is selfish. And but I think people are resilient and they get over it. You know, like, if you said no, and I think people would get over it. You know, they'll be unhappy in a moment, but at least at the very least, you kind of respected yourself. And there's some, I don't know. It's one of those tough things. I have sleep last too. It's an area I've been working on lately, and it's so hard because I'm going a little bit too aggressive with putting my feet down. I'm actually cutting off friends now, and it's horrible because I don't really want to cut them out. But like, I did an interview yesterday with Ikram, and she had sleep last also, and she said, you know, she sets boundaries before she gets to the point where she doesn't like this person anymore, which I really like. I like that analogy that she said. And for me, it's like, oh yeah, right. Because at the moment I cut off those people, I already processed in my head that I don't like them anymore. So it's like almost like saving the relationship by setting boundaries, you know. And there's always a logical way to approach it, obviously. Like I have sleep last, so it's awful. Like the way I approach is awful. I think the way you're approaching is also awful.
Yeah.
Sure. But like, I think the best way for us to approach it, like for you, it's like, you can just go up to them and say, you know, sorry, it doesn't work for my schedule, but you know, and then if you have to give reasons, you can say, I think if you worded it differently, I'm definitely on board. I just don't feel good the way you said it.
Right.
And it's not like you're acting like a victim, but
Right.
it's like saying, you know, it's like honoring yourself. It's like saying, I don't like the way you said it, but
Right.
you know, if you want to do this, we can do it another time. But
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't work for me. You know,
Right.
and you can always say it's soft in a soft way, right? So it's not like you have to be like, you know, that the truth hurts is what they say, and you know, obviously when you're using your TI, it's gonna hurt. Someone's gonna get hurt, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I'm mindful of that though, and you know,
it's
been
gonna be harder.
that in the past for sure, but yeah,
It's gonna be harder for both of us because of that feminine DE, right? So it's definitely gonna be a lifelong challenge. But I think we need to do it. If we don't do it, we're gonna feel awful. We're gonna feel awful. That's all there is to it, right? Like, I don't know what else to say in that situation.
Yeah.
You're masculine, feminine. You're auditory. How do you experience auditory?
I don't know in what way. Because I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I know, so I should be able to learn from audio. Is that I feel like I'm all of the thing. I mean, tester I don't really understand, but I feel like visual, audio, kinesthetic, they all kind of.
Well, no, there's a huge difference in all of them.
But I mean, I know there's a difference, but I feel like I can learn in any of those ways. It doesn't.
Well, I'll give you some examples, and then maybe you can elaborate based on the examples that I provide you. My girlfriend is double feminine, and supposedly she was typed as double feminine, but I don't think she is. I think she's feminine masculine, but that's a different story. It doesn't matter because they would both have tester and visual.
Right.
So I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and I told her that when she listens to her watching videos on trashy TV shows, I get really irritated. And she said, and I said to her, and she said to me, why do you get irritated? And I'm like, because I hear every single word that they're saying in those videos. She's like, oh, that's interesting. I don't hear a single word. I just hear background noise, you know? And it's because she is not auditory, right? She's tester and visual. But when I tell her a picture of an event that happened, she can vividly picture it. And she's like, you know, and I'm like, I don't see anything. Like for me, it's like nothing. I don't feel anything. I don't see anything. Like maybe I can see like a picture, but it doesn't. There's no emotional connection to it as an audio person. But when I hear a background noise, I can hear every word that's being said, and it's like affecting me. I'm like you know. So that's how it is for like an audio person versus like a visual person. Now for tester, I noticed that my girlfriend and other tester people that I've met, they're really obsessed with trying things out, like experimenting essentially. Like they want to try new food. You know, I have a friend from college. She's like a serial dater. She likes to date different kind of racial background guys. You know, she's dated like a black guy, an Asian guy, a white guy, a Latino guy. Like she wants to test everything, right? It's like, it's extreme tester wants to test everything. And it's like, it's even crazy for people with like Savior Gather because they're going to not only gather, but test everything that they've gathered. But people who are kinesthetic, they seem to have better bodily movements when it comes to physical exercise, physical movements in general. Like they pick up things physically. Even when it comes to, like for me, for example, I used to work at Starbucks and I realized how quickly I learned how to make a cappuccino, for example. And I made the perfect cappuccino. And, you know, it's all movements when you're trying to make that cappuccino, when you're trying to make that foam, right? And I was like, oh, wow. I do have like I do pick up things really quickly when it comes to exercise or doing something with my hands. So your audio kinesthetic. So can you talk about, are you able to see things when people ask you to visualize? Can you hear every single word when you're hearing like someone talking, or what has been your experience with that?
Well, the kinesthetic thing, like you were talking about Starbucks, I worked at an ice cream shop, you know, soft serve, and you have to spin the cone around. I got that like the first day, you know, picked that up really easy. Stuff like that.
Kinesthetic, you got it.
When I was a kid, I would spend hours sitting at a piano. I didn't ever have lessons or anything, but I knew like all the theme songs for like the cartoons and Christmas songs and stuff like that. And I would sit there and one key, you know, tap out the songs and then memorize the entire song. And then when my mom would get home, I'd say, you know, come here, listen. And I would play the songs, and 3 or 4 different ones that I'd learned that day just by sitting at the piano.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I sang in the choir when I was in high school. I sang in the talent show, and I won the talent show.
Wow.
I sang karaoke, and that's where I met my wife. We were out. I went out with my dad, and I sang a couple of songs. And she was there with a bunch of friends. And I got up and sang like 3 songs. And they even had a contest, and I won that and won like a meal and stuff. So I brought her back for a date, you know, after.
Nice. That's awesome, man. It looks like your auditory has gotten you a wife.
Yeah. I mean, we just had our 26th anniversary. So.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Yeah. So I'll hear voices on TV, like different voices, and then I'll hear them later in a different thing, and I'll be like, oh, that's somebody that I've seen over here. And a lot of times I like to mimic voices when I hear them on TV, stuff like the accents and stuff like that.
Right.
So I've always been very attuned to, like, if I'm watching an animated show, I'll be like, oh, that's this actor or that actor, because I can hear, you know, their voices and stuff. So I guess that would be the audio stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's 100% audio. I don't think singing is audio per se, but everything else I think is audio.
Okay.
It's the way you described it sounds like it's audio. And can you hear every single word that's being said when you listen to something?
I mean, I think so. I listen to a lot of podcasts and shows and stuff, and I usually play them on like twice the speed and stuff like that, and I pick it all up. My wife is like, how can you hear any of that?
Yeah,
you get used to it.
You know what's funny is that my girlfriend said the exact same thing to me, because I also played an audio on twice the speed or like 1.75 the speed.
I do the 1.75 too, yeah.
Yeah, or 1.5 depending on how much
the person's talking really fast. I have to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, of course. And she said, do you even know what they're saying? And I told her exactly what the person said. She's like, what the hell? Like, it's yeah. so it seems like it's an audio superpower. It's like we can pick up every single word and we actually pick it up even though it's going really fast. Yeah. So okay, that's interesting. So it's good that we got that knocked down. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about your FE for a bit. Okay. So I noticed something very interesting between FI and FE, and I noticed that the FE people is good at producing the appropriate facial expression for the appropriate moment, and they're good at mirroring the person's facial expression. So if someone's sad, then you can also look sad. If someone's excited, you can also look excited. So you can, if someone's angry, you can be angry. It's like you can mirror the tribe's emotions, right? But I noticed this. I noticed that if you had to produce an original emotion at the moment, that people with FE have trouble doing that. Do you think that, like, if I tell you right now, produce this emotion for me, do you think it would be a struggle?
I couldn't do, yeah, I struggle, definitely. I didn't mention this earlier, but I should mention this now, I guess, since we're talking about emotions.
Sure.
I have something called Alexithymia. It's emotional blindness in myself.
Okay.
I can explain it fairly easily.
Sure.
When I started studying ops, I actually learned that I had this thing called Alexithymia. So my bodily functions are the same as yours. You know, I'm sure I'm having emotions just like you are, but there's some point along the way where you label those emotions and you save them. And then you can recall, you know, past emotions. I don't do the labeling and I can't recall old emotions. So if you ask me, what's your favorite this or that, or, you know, I have to go back to my entire memory and think of the things and then try to weigh them in the moment and then judge whether or not you would accept the answer that that I would maybe give you. I have to do a lot of work when you ask me emotional questions. So I have like a blindness for my own emotions, even though I know I have them. I just don't recognize them in the moment, and then I don't save anything where I could recall it. It's a weird thing, but maybe maybe a lot of people with FE have that problem. I don't know, but I definitely have it. And I didn't even know it was a thing until just recently. I realized when people were asking me questions that I was doing all of this work to give them an answer, and it was taking a long time all the time. And other people I would see just instantly could, you know, tell you their emotions. And I was like, holy crap, how are they doing that so fast? I can't, you know, I have to think of my entire, it's like if you were doing a Google search and nothing was tagged, you know, you'd have to just scan the entire internet. That's
Yeah.
how it is when people ask me emotional questions. It's like, I have no idea.
I feel like it's a combination of a lot of stuff. So first of all, you have feminine FE, right? So, you know, the memory when it comes to that emotion would not be as solid.
Yeah.
You know, I think Gary Vee has masculine FE, and it seems like he can talk about his emotions from before. But it sounds like when it comes to labeling emotion, that's more like an FI thing, you know?
Mm.
You know?
Okay.
Because like if I have to do like idea stuff and I have to put a label on my ideas, then it's a struggle because I have NE, right? But like people with masculine NI or NI in general can kind of label their ideas, you know, pretty well, and they can even like structure it, or like this concept goes first and then this concept goes second, this concept goes third, so they can kind of like rearrange the concepts. Like I know with like INFJs, for example, they're very good at controlling other people's emotion, like, you know, kind of like Darren Brown or other people, because of that NIFE, right? So the NI kind of plans, okay, this is the steps that we have to follow, and this is step number one, and then this is how this person would feel after step number one, and step number two, and this is how this person would feel after step number two. So just like a lot of emotion, controlling other people's emotions, essentially. Emotional manipulation, I guess you could say. I mean, that sounds kind of horrible, but you know, it's like a superpower in my opinion. But you know, so I think that's why for your situation, it's that feminine FE plus. You're also sleep last too, which doesn't help your situation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So there's a lot of things that's going against you. But the good thing about your power though is that talking to you right now is very fluid. Like I don't sense any like awkwardness in our conversation at all. It's been fluid, and I know and that typically happens when I talk to someone that has play savior. You know, you just know how to, like, talking with a tribe is like a back and forth, easy, fun, natural thing for you to do. You know, it's not like there's no effort involved. You know, would you say that's about right, or it's not accurate?
I'm getting there. I've been doing it all in my head all this time, so I don't do it a lot out, you know, in the real world. So it's a struggle, and I do see that it's getting a little bit easier, but you know, I'm going to keep working on it. So
I think you got traumatized by your family though, so it's a little bit different in your situation. I think if that never happened, I think you would have been doing it your whole life.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. I had a question for you, but let's talk about your NI. So, how do you experience your NI? Like, do you have what is in your IJ box? Let's start with that.
My IJ box, yeah, I keep hearing about that. I don't know. My NI is very flowy. It's like I can take on ideas and not necessarily believe them, and try them out and see, okay, it doesn't fit here, it doesn't fit there. Like ops, for example, is like when they gave me my type, I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem right, but let me assume that it's right for the moment, not believe it, but just try it and see if I can understand it and make it work. So I can definitely see that the NI is flowy. It's like I can try things on and then realize, okay, it doesn't work here, here, and here, throw it out. But in my IJ box, like,
Can I give you some examples?
Yeah, that would help.
So, I like to use my sister as an example, because she has like this, like the most stubborn IJ box in the world. So, for example, I noticed that people who have IJ boxes, they like to do one thing per area of life. So, for example, my sister, for exercise, it's yoga only. I said, but I work in the fitness industry, right? So I know that's wrong, you know, because if you're doing yoga only, then you don't do resistance training, which is important to build your bones. So I would tell her this. I'm like, you need to lift weights because you're gonna get, your bone density is gonna drop, and you're gonna get osteoporosis in your 50s or late 40s. And she's like, yoga. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna get through. It's impossible.
Right.
You know, so it's like I know another person who is like I like someone with NI, and when it comes to dating, like it's like I know this one guy. He's white, and he's like, I only date Asian women. You know, Asian women only. Right. No. I don't want to date the other races. I don't even want Asian women only. It's like there's an NI box. It's like it's kind of rigid. It's like that's it. You know, this is it. You know, like.
Right.
And then you can talk about the other stuff, but they're not going to listen to you. And it's just like, nope, this.
Right.
Now you do have feminine NI, so it's a little bit more flexible than people with masculine NI.
Right.
But you still
Like
have.
I'll see that I'll get stuck on things like a hobby or whatever, and I'll be all in on it for a long time.
Yes.
And then I kind of give it up and get a new one and do that. I did the genealogy stuff, the family tree.
Okay.
I got pretty involved in that for a long time. And then I kind of burned out. I was into coin collecting. My grandfather died in 1999, and I inherited his coin collection. And that year 2000 was coming up, and I got it in my head. I wanted to get year 2000 coins from all over the world. So I contacted all these different mints around the world, and sent emails and letters and all this kind of stuff, and collected coins with the year 2000 on them.
Yeah.
It got into my head, and I had to do it. And so I contacted everybody I could. And I got a bunch of coins from 2000. It was kind of neat at the time. They were doing the quarters, the state quarters in the U.S. at the same time. I got hooked on that too. That kind of I was a comic book collector as a kid, and then I got into it later in life and got back into it a third time recently. I got a bunch of friends, and we do art and stuff. So I draw every October. There's this thing called Inktober. You do one drawing per day of the month of October. And my buddy's also an artist, and he got me to try it the first year. And I've done it 4 years now. Every day you do one drawing and ink it. And I didn't even expect to stick with it, but it's I start things and it's okay, I got to finish this. I can't give up in the middle. Right. So that kind of stuff. I do see that I have a tendency to, when I start something, it's okay, I'm going to stick with this until I burn out and then move on to something else. But
I think you also demonstrated how good your NISE are together, because you're gathering physical things, nonstop. That's part of your NI. It seems to be gathering things, which actually I think helps you, because people with low SE will not be gathering stuff, right? But you're gathering. Yeah.
And I had a hard time with the double observer, double decider coin. I was I felt like I was doing both. I didn't know which I was doing more, but.
Well, you also demonstrated that too, because you were using a lot of play in the way you were collecting the coins. You contacted all these different mints. Only people with high play would go out of their way to contact different people. People with low play was I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to engage a tribe. But for you, oh yeah, that's fine. What's the big deal?
Yeah, I could see where I didn't want to do it, but I also wanted the coins more, so that would be the TI.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I wanted those things, so I didn't care. I was going to do the thing that was uncomfortable regardless. So,
yeah. So there you go. You did a TI as well. So, and then your NI showed that you get obsessed over things. Once you get started and you start obsessing over it.
Yeah.
And to switch gears takes years. It's not even months. It's years.
Yeah.
People with NE would switch gears every week, right? But for you, it's every few or even several years before you would switch gears. Now you do have feminine NI, so I noticed that because you have feminine NI, you will switch gears eventually. Because I noticed that people with masculine NI, there's a chance they will never switch gears.
Really?
It's just for example, if you got into coin collecting, it's been 30 years, they're still into coin collecting. That's kind of
Yeah.
I mean, how does it make you feel if you're still coin collecting after 40 or 50 years?
Yeah, that's kind of scary. My grandfather, it was funny when I got his collection. He had all these little envelopes, with writing on it, and there would be pennies from each year. They're not worth anything, but he got obsessively, he was collecting 1998, 1999, they're just pennies, but he was obsessed about it. So yeah, I'm not like that. I just if I was collecting it forever, that seems like that's a problem. But if it's an enjoyment that you're getting out of it, and maybe you had a bunch of friends and it was a playful thing and you were showing them, and everybody was excited about looking at everybody else, I could see sticking with something like that. But if you're just doing it for you,
well, maybe your grandfather was an IxxJ, with SI.
That would make a lot of sense.
So it's SI-FI kind of it's I put an emotional attachment to this physical object, this penny that means nothing to you obviously, but to him it's it's a world, right?
Right.
So why don't we go through that question then? are things personal for you? Like physical objects, do you put a personal attachment to them?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that. I guess it's tiny. I mean, I can replace stuff. You know, if our house burned down, I would be happy that we survived. And, you know, pictures and things, you know, everything's in a cloud now. Items, you know, you can replace everything. Like, I can't think of anything that I would just be like, oh, this one thing, you know. I have art back here. I did all this art. I like all kinds of art that I've created. I enjoy the act of creating it, and then I've sold some and given a lot away. I enjoy sitting down and doing art. It can just vanish. If it disappeared just into thin air, I don't care. I do like giving it away or sell, you know, if somebody wants it and they want to pay me for it, that's fine. But I actually went into school initially thinking I wanted to be an artist. And then I got in there and I could see all these other people had, like, I guess they were probably visual and I wasn't. They had the skills where they could just picture things and draw it. And I have to look at like 10 different things. And I'm pretty much just looking at it and copying and taking parts from here and there, trying to make it a little bit original, but it's really, I'm just copying what I'm seeing other people do. I mean, if I'm looking at a picture of you, for example, I would draw you. I'm not copying, but I'm looking at you. So, but if I just had to imagine what you look like, I can't do that. So
I think yes, I think you just proved that things are not personal for you. They're not.
Yeah.
Like if you like, because I was interviewing Lindsay, and she said if everything in my house burns down, she said the exact same thing as what you said, actually, the exact same thing. Like it's kind of funny that the NI people with SE at the bottom would say the same thing. If my whole house burns down right now, I couldn't care less, as long as, like you said, we're all safe, right? Yeah. Like you're so I thought it was kind of interesting that.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's like an SE thing. Like, yeah, things are not personal. I don't care. You know, it's like whatever. You know.
Yeah. I mean, you're sad because I worked and I made money and I bought things and, you know, they're gone. But, you know, if I have insurance, and I would replace everything. It's no big deal.
Yeah. I'm actually debating now with my girlfriend. I feel like my girlfriend's mistyped because I feel like she has SI, because she was typed as an INTJ jumper. But like, she's so sentimental with her stuff. She refuses to let go of anything. So, and that kind of like contradicts, like, you know, SE versus SI, you know? Right. So, but that's for a different day, you know? All right, Kevin, I'm going to ask you two last questions and then we'll wrap up this interview. And it's been an amazing interview. It's been fun. My first question for you is, what advice can you give other INFJs who's struggling with that SE? Because this is an area that you've more or less been okay with. It's not an area that's killing you. You know, right now you're struggling more with the identity stuff because of the sleep last. But what advice can you give to INFJs who's struggling with that SE? How can they work on it?
Yeah, I would say meditation helps me a lot to, like, in the moment when you see you need to gather and you're stressed and the thought of, oh crap, you know, chaos or whatever, taking a moment and just seeing that your brain is freaking out, just dial down the freak out, you know. It's like you're causing yourself the stress, you know. It's not coming from external, it's you're doing it. And if you can just realize these functions are just, they're programs. You can not call that program, you know, that subroutine that says freak out at this point. If these two things are true, all of a sudden I'm freaking out. You don't have to do that. It's just your brain. Just hack it, you know. Learn, see yourself doing it and say, oh, that's my brain doing that freak out thing. I don't have to do that right now. I need to accomplish this goal, and just go gather the information you need to gather.
That's a very good advice. I think I like that meditation thing too, because it's very SE. Like I think the SE and SI meditation is completely different, but that's a very good advice for INFJs. I think INTJs can also take this advice too and use it. Last question for you is that, do you have any questions for me about the functions that I have that you don't have? Because we have completely different functions. I have NE, FI, TE, and SI. Do you have any questions about those functions that might confuse you? It's like, I don't even know how that works, you know?
Yeah. So you're NE first, right? Yeah.
I'm an ENFP, yeah. Jumper.
Yeah. The anything. I had the assumption, I think, well, tell me this. What can you think of a superhero that you would relate to, that you're like, that person is probably the same type as me because they're this or that or whatever? Do you have any?
I don't have a superhero, but I mean, okay, I'll talk about two people then.
Okay.
In terms of like a real person, I think the most developed ENFP is probably Owen Cook, the guy from, I don't know if you've seen his videos.
I've seen who he is, and I've heard Dave and Shannon talk about him, but I haven't
Yeah,
looked into
in
him.
my opinion, the journey that he's gone through is the best example of how an ENFP should develop themselves, because he's had this company, he has his dating company, right, that he's been running for, I don't know, like over 10 years now. And that takes a lot of effort for an ENFP to stick through one area. It took him over 10 years before he's slowly switching gears to self-help as opposed to just dating, but it's still kind of correlated. So he's stuck through it, and that's a big area to respect. He's also sleep last, and he's developed how to use that sleep processing really well. So I think from a perspective of like who's a good role model for like an ENFP male, I think he would be the one that I think is good. As far as like a fictional superhero, when I was watching those Marvel movies, the Marvel character that really resonated with me the most was Thor. I was watching the first Thor movie, and for me, like a lot of people said it was just an okay movie, but to me that was like one of the best movies in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. And like it's because like when he started out, I think he's an EP because he's causing chaos left and right. I don't necessarily think he's an ENFP, but I think he's an EP and he's causing like freaking chaos left and right. And you know, I don't know if you saw the movie, but you know but you know, in the start of the movie, he pretty much attacked those ice people, right? And then his dad kicked him out of like Asgard and threw him to Earth, right?
Right.
He was supposed to be the next king, and because of his arrogance, arrogance and like blatant disrespect for, you know, this diplomacy, and just just charge head first without thinking, got him in a lot of trouble. And then now when he went to Earth, he had to atone for his sins, and he had to do a lot of sleep processing and kind of think like, oh my God, I've really messed up and it's my fault. And he took self-responsibility too, you know, and in the end, when he was fighting that big robot with the lasers, like he sacrificed himself, you know, to save his friends and everyone around him. So instead of acting selfishly to be king and to get rid of his dad ASAP because his dad is an old person, he completely disrespected his dad's wisdom, right?
Right.
And I love how like at the end of the movie where he said to his dad, he's like, I'm not ready to be king. You know, I have much to learn. And his dad pretty much said, now you're ready to be king. You know, it's like
right. It's like the hero's journey, right?
And that really touched me because like he went from arrogance to humbleness.
Right.
He went from selfish to like the person that just cares for his family and friends, and went from a guy who was brash and attacking headfirst to someone that just realized like, okay, I need to think things through before I act because I can hurt people around me and I can really mess things up. So, so for me, that really resonated with me when I saw that. I was like, wow, that like I almost felt like I'm kind of like that kind of person. Like I do things head first. I don't really think things through. I do things head first. I don't think things through, which is bad. I do things selfishly, which I don't like. And I mean, I like it and I don't like it. Like you know, I have to double decide. I'm a double decider, so it's not gonna be my biggest life problem. But and also like being humble too. I wouldn't say I'm arrogant, but I think realizing that there's always something that you can learn. You know, like don't close the book on something. You know, leave it open. Leave it open because there's always like I'll give you a concrete example. Like I've been working in the fitness industry now for 7 years, and I can tell you right now on the third or fourth year mark, I wanted to close the books on the fitness industry because I have NE and I don't like I get bored doing the same thing over and over again. But now I'm 7 years in. I'm very happy I never closed the books because I've learned things that I would have never learned had I stopped. and some of this knowledge I've learned, I've been able to, I specialize in training seniors and helping the elderly. I do like a lot of chair exercises.
Wow.
And but since I've gone through the fitness journey, I've realized that the area that I really resonate with is helping people feel normal again. So I felt really happy when I had a senior come up to me and said, you know, at the start of our class, I would wake up in the morning, my whole body would hurt. And now I wake up, I'm pain-free. I'm like, oh my God, I just feel so touched, right?
Wow, yeah.
And, you know, I've helped people, like I'm really good at trigger point therapy. So I've helped people get rid of their knee pain. I had this one girl, she was 24, and the doctor said that she needs a hip replacement surgery at the age of 24, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
And then her boyfriend hired me to be her trainer for just 2 sessions, and I taught her how to do trigger point therapy on herself using a foam roller and a lacrosse ball. And after 2 months, her hips aligned again, and she went to the doctor, and she didn't need a hip replacement surgery anymore.
Wow.
And for me, it's like, oh my God, if had I not stick it true in fitness, these people would,
Right.
that girl would have had a hip replacement surgery, and it would have ruined the rest of her life, you know. And you know, I can attribute that to sticking something true long term and not giving up and not closing the books on something. So
That's really good that's good advice for people to hear, that, you know, that sticking with something, even when your brain is telling you, get out, you know, do something else, you can benefit from staying there. Yeah.
right. I'm like, to this day, I still struggle with like wanting to get out of it. But now I kind of like, the way I kind of accepted it is like, okay, at some point you will get out of it, but never completely. It'll always be like in the side. Like you can always do it on a small scale as a side hobby, you know? Right. And by saying that to myself, I kind of came to terms with it. I'm like, okay, as a side hobby, long-term wise, I can accept that, you know? So
Definitely. Yeah. It's a good skill to have. And even if you move, you still have that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's fitness. We all need to exercise. So I think I felt like, oh yeah, you know, it's not gonna be useless, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, Kevin. Thanks for doing this interview. I appreciate you coming out and volunteering to do this interview. And
Sure.
I think what I respect about you a lot is that you know, you have a lot of anxiety doing this, but you still did it anyway. So I think that took a lot of courage. So I give you a lot of props for taking that step forward. And I think you being very vulnerable and talking about like a lot of your shortcomings, I really appreciate that. I think a lot of people can resonate and relate to that. It's, you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about like areas that makes them feel uncomfortable, but you openly talked about it, and I think that's really going to help a lot of people. Almost giving people permission to openly talk about their feelings, you know. Especially with your struggles growing up, not feeling good enough. I think that's something that we can all relate to, right? So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on. Sure.
All right.
Great getting to know you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. So bye, everyone, and bye again to Kevin. And yeah, we're done.